perhaps nothing more draining in the life of a teacher or student than losing control of one's emotions, especially to the point where people become scared for their safety. Make no mistake, both teachers and students can escalate behavior, and neither results in a positive outcome. Obviously, the teacher can think ahead and make efforts to control their own behavior, but teachers and other school personnel can also think ahead to first prevent events that trigger student emotions, and second, intervene early enough to prevent agitation from escalating out of control and dangerous behavior. Let's first consider a cycle of escalating behavior. As stated, escalating behaviors are unpleasant for everyone. Fortunately, a predictable cycle of escalating behaviors has been identified, and to the extent that we can identify what starts the cycle and what stage students are in, we can also take steps to effectively prevent escalation. This requires that the teacher is aware of events in their environment and in control of his or her own behavior and emotions. Let's take a look at each of the stages and then consider the implications. Before there is an escalating behavior, there is calm. This is a typical student who is dealing with their day without any issues. This is the point in time where we are most able to deliver instruction, to teach students about positive ways to deal with inevitable trigger situations. This can occur as part of a group instruction or individually if necessary.
Hey Gabe, did you check the answer?
No.
Why don't you go ahead and try it again?
Okay.
I bet tomorrow you'll get 100%, huh?
Yeah.
It is very difficult to effectively deal with escalating behaviors once they begin without first having taught appropriate behavior. Once escalation begins, instruction becomes difficult or impossible. No matter how good we are at attempting to avoid those circumstances that set students off, they will inevitably occur. And this is why we teach ahead of time. But once a trigger has occurred, the student will be distracted and will require reminders and redirection from the teacher. The better a relationship a teacher has with a student, the easier it is to redirect them. Challenging the student will only increase escalation. If we are unable to effectively redirect the student into an activity or an engagement that will make them forget the trigger behavior, it typically escalates into what we call agitation. It's important for teachers to recognize the signs of agitation, since this is the last chance we have to distract the student and turn their attention back to something more positive. At this point, students are very likely to escalate quickly and dangerously if challenged or if the teacher's behavior escalates.
Gabe, I need for you to get back to work.
Why you tell me to get back to work? He's the one that started
I'm
it.
not talking about him, I'm talking about you. Get back.
I heard you.
If agitation escalates to the acceleration stage, the student's behavior dramatically increases in frequency and intensity. This is where we see tantrums, threats, violence, and destructive behaviors, which could also be aimed inward with self-abuse. At this stage, the teacher's focus shifts from prevention of escalation to prevention of harm to the student or to other students in the environment. Moving students out of harm's way and continuing to provide clear, calm, and simple direction to the student are the best courses of action. If there is a crisis plan in place, now is the time to implement it. Once acceleration begins, there's going to be a peak, but how intense that peak is varies across individual students. Again, the teacher's focus is on safety for everyone. However, physical restraint is strongly discouraged unless you are trained and certified in safe physical management. Instead of holding the student, move others away and call for assistance.
Now. Sit down now.
After the peak, students generally realize they've gone too far and will quickly stop the escalation. At this point, they may project blame at others or even apologize and attempt to escape the setting. The teacher's role here is to maintain a calm demeanor.
He provoked me. He made me do it. He made me angry.
Let the student know it's over and just leave them alone to de-escalate quietly. It may be necessary to ask a student to be seated, but direction should be calm and simple. Any new directions or challenges to the student can promote a second acceleration and peak. After a sufficient cooling off period, the student may be ready to begin a transition back to the routine. The teacher should provide very simple directions in sequence over several minutes to assess the student's readiness to fully transition. While some simple debriefing may be necessary if the student asks questions, it is best to save these discussions once the student is fully back into a calm phase.
Thank you for staying calm. Do you think you could move to the end of the table?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Finally, the escalating episode has run its course, and the student is again calm, which affords the teacher an opportunity to fully debrief, including a discussion of what the trigger was, reteaching how the student could have better dealt with it, and what the consequence will be.
Thank you for calming yourself down. What do you think could have been a better way to handle that?
He's the one that started it. You should be talking to him, not me.
Right. But what could you have done differently?
I could probably, talk to you and let you handle it instead of me trying to handle it.
Exactly. But because you didn't, this is going to be a detention, right?
Right.
But maybe you and I can work on this together in detention. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Across all your dealings with challenging students and escalating behaviors, there are a few very basic keys to success. First, take advantage of the calm times to pre-teach all the behaviors that students need to successfully navigate their school environment. Consider identifiable triggers and how you can teach them ways to successfully deal with those circumstances. Second, a way to work successfully with students whose emotions are quick to escalate is to establish a positive relationship as part of your regular routine. Smile at your students, ask them how they're doing, and let them know you care. This will greatly improve your chances when you are trying to redirect and distract them away from escalation later. Third, think ahead to when and where the triggers are most likely, and then try to develop an environment that avoids those conditions. It's not foolproof since there's no way you can ever control everything, but that's why we teach how to deal with it. If we can avoid the triggers, we have maximized the probability of success. Fourth, it's important to be consistent with how you deal with students. Inconsistency is confusing to students and raises the potential for errors. Remind them of the expected behaviors and provide encouragement and praise for positive behaviors every day. Finally, it's critical that you remain in control of your own emotions. When adults begin to escalate their behavior, it is a giant predictor for the student to follow suit. Take a breath, go back to your instruction, and don't take anything personally, even if it is. Just calmly follow your procedure while communicating a genuine concern for the student. Sometimes you have to take bigger steps and provide larger consequences, but it will be most effective when you do so in a calm and unemotional manner. Recall that escalating behavior is predictable, and to the extent that we can predict it, we have increased our likelihood of prevention. But knowing where a student is in the cycle has major implications for how we intervene. A simple assessment of student behaviors can be used to determine where they are in the cycle. As a general rule, we will consider a student to be in the highest stage in which 2 or more of the behavior indicators are present. To start, let's take a look at Gerald's escalating behavior in a classroom center activity.
All right, get your pencils ready. Let's get started. Thank you. Pulling out your ruler. Get back to work. Come on.
Mind your own business.
Get
I
back to
heard
work.
you!
You can't speak to me that way.
I'm sick of you, and I'm sick of your face! just mind their own business?
We're glad you're back. Looks like we've calmed down a little bit. Could you hand me that pen?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. All right, how about we move on? Page 39. Who would like to read first? All right, go ahead.
The following is a list of the vocabulary used in this chapter. Make sure that you are familiar with all these words and you know what they mean. Refer to the glossary or index for any words that you do not yet understand.
Looks like we're all calmed down now. Very nice. So let's think about this for a second. What could you have done a little bit differently?
Well, if he hadn't provoked me.
Okay, let's think about it. What could you have done differently?
Maybe I shouldn't have yelled, or maybe I
Right.
should have been a bit more calm.
Why don't we do this? Why don't you stick around after class? Maybe we can talk about some solutions, okay?
Okay.
You've probably noticed that Gerald's behaviors were different over time as the cycle progressed. Now, let's go back and talk about what the typical indicator behaviors are at each stage. Knowing where the student is will give us valuable information for determining our best course of action, which we'll dig into in the next module. As we've discussed, the calm phase involves teachers teaching and students' engagement. At this stage, you will notice that the student is able to follow directions without problems and can even take directions to stop behavior without incident. As an example, take a look at Cindy's behavior in the hallway during dismissal. See if you can identify the behaviors that signal this as a calm stage for her.
Super cute dress.
Really? Hey
Yeah.
girls, did you remember there's homework?
No problem.
What's it look like?
So it's like blue and it's
At the trigger phase, something has happened, or the student perceives that something has happened that he or she did not like. It may be an actual event, something someone said or did, or it might be a circumstance, such as knowing that the coming activity is going to be difficult or that a negative consequence is on its way. An accumulation of errors can also be a trigger for a student. After the trigger, the student may voice some annoyance, but mainly she will be easily distracted and difficult to keep on task because they'll be stewing on the trigger. See if you can see these telltale indicators with Cindy.
Hey, this is not social hour, let's go. Move it.
If the trigger isn't adequately removed or the student distracted, there's a good chance that she will move into the agitation stage. At agitation, the simple distraction seen during the trigger stage increases with quick eye and hand movements that accompany a rise in adrenaline. They are less willing to communicate at this stage, putting their full focus on the trigger. If questioned, the student may make short and direct statements designed to end the conversation. At this stage, it is very difficult to engage the student with anything other than a very simple direction. Anything else likely will be seen as a challenge, which will further escalate behavior. Watch how the teacher fails to read that Cindy is agitated, and this causes her to escalate.
Hey, this is not social hour, let's go. Move it. Hey, I said it's not social hour.
I heard you the first time!
Then move it.
When the agitation phase is not adequately addressed, the cycle behavior is likely to increase in a more dramatic manner. This is the acceleration stage. At acceleration, the student's behaviors become more frequent and intense. This may involve verbal and physical actions that are hostile and aggressive in nature, including yelling, arguing, threatening, and refusal to follow directions. If others' behavior escalates in response to the student's behavior, it is likely to increase the student's escalation. Watch again how Cindy's behaviors escalate into acceleration as a result of the teacher's continued provocation.
Hey, not social hour, let's go. Move it. I said move it. Let's go. Let's go right now.
I heard you the first time!
All right, here's what I need from you. I need you to come with me. You don't need to be rude to me like that.
I'm not going anywhere with you!
Accelerating behavior will continue to escalate until it reaches its peak. For some students, the peak is fairly mild and may occur fairly quickly, but for other students, they may have extremely violent peaks and may accelerate for long durations before peaking and coming down. The peak is the most intense behavior in the cycle and can be dangerous for both the student and others in the environment. Because Cindy's teacher did not recognize where she was in the cycle, Cindy's behavior continued to accelerate to an intense and violent peak.
You're going to go with me right now, young lady. You don't really have a choice on this anymore.
No, I don't. I'm not going anywhere with you.
All right, now you're suspended.
Good.
That's what gets you suspended, so
Good.
let's go to the office.
I'm glad I'm suspended so I don't have to see your face around here every
Okay,
day.
let's go right now.
All right, go.
All right, I'll be back.
Okay, bye.
Once the peak has been reached within a cycle, the student will generally begin to de-escalate quickly. There is a tendency for the student to realize she went too far and to attempt reconciliation or to explain why it happened by projecting blame. At this point, she may apologize, point a finger of blame at others, or even run to get away. After an especially intense peak behavior, students may seem confused or emotionally drained and move away so they may sit down or rest. In addition, if challenged again during de-escalation, the student is likely to have another acceleration and peak. Watch how Cindy responds after her peak threatening behavior.
Bye.
What are you doing?
He's pissing me off.
Do you know how bad it's gonna look on your transcript?
I don't care.
Why don't you care?
He's treating me like I'm 5.
Trying to help.
No, he wasn't. He knows what he's doing.
At the recovery stage, the student has de-escalated to the point where, although she's not completely calm, she's able to follow some concrete directions. She may still argue if engaged, but she is willing to be quiet if not confronted. At this stage, the student is generally desiring to work alone but not in groups. Because there is still a tendency to be defensive, any confrontation may result in another escalation, restarting the cycle. See how a teacher mishandles Cindy's recovery behavior and starts off another acceleration.
All right, I've spoken to the principal and you are suspended, so we need to head down to the office.
No.
It's not a choice. You've
Yeah,
been
I do,
suspended.
and I'm not going
No,
anywhere with you.
You need to go to the office.
No,
You've
I'm
been-
not.
You're already suspended. You
I
either
don't
go
care.
with me or you go with the school
Go
safety
with
office.
them. I don't care.
All right, your choice.
Fine.
Finally, the student is calm and willing to be engaged with instruction and the typical routines without problems. Sometimes after the student's escalation have been particularly intense, this return to calm may not be available until after suspension or other time away. However, debriefing and instruction are best delivered sooner rather than later after an incident has run through the cycle.